Have you ever had to deal with someone who just seems to thrive on chaos? Well, today, we're unpacking a survival guide for those incredibly intense, difficult interactions. We're going to dive deep into the work of Bill Eddy, who's both a therapist and a lawyer. And let me tell you, he created this amazing framework for understanding what he calls high-conflict personalities.
Oh, you know the feeling, right? It's like you're arguing, but the conversation just keeps going in circles. Logic has completely left the building, and by the end, you're just totally drained. You're left sitting there thinking, what on earth just happened? It's not really a discussion, is it? It's more like a boss battle in a video game that you never even agreed to play. If any of that sounds familiar, then you are absolutely in the right place.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll figure out what a high-conflict personality, or HCP for short, even is. Then, we'll check out the 5 main types, learn how to spot them, and finally, get that counterintuitive survival guide. Simple as that.
Okay, let's dive right in. What exactly is a high-conflict personality? The first thing to get straight is that we're moving way beyond just calling someone difficult. This isn't about your coworker having a bad day. Nope. We're talking about a very consistent, very predictable pattern of behavior.
And get this, the number of people who fit this profile might shock you. We're talking about an estimated 10% of the adult population. Think about that for a second. 1 in 10 adults. That means you've almost certainly run into an HCP, maybe at work, in your neighborhood, or, yeah, even in your own family. This is not some rare thing at all.
So, what makes an HCP tick? Well, according to the framework, there are 4 core traits. And here's the kicker. They have to have all 4. First up, a total preoccupation with blaming other people. It's never their fault. Ever. Then you've got this intense all-or-nothing thinking. Everything is either black or white, good or evil, no gray areas. Third, their emotions are just completely unmanaged and often way over the top. And all of that leads to the 4th trait, extreme behaviors. We're talking about stuff that 90% of people would just never, ever do. Okay, so now that we have the building blocks, let's look at how they come together. Bill Eddy breaks this down into 5 key archetypes. Think of it like a rogues gallery of high-conflict behavior. Knowing these types is your secret weapon because it helps you predict what they might do next and, what to watch out for. First on our list is the narcissistic HCP. Their whole deal is summed up in their catchphrase, "I'm superior, you're nothing." Their entire world revolves around being the best, being admired. Their absolute biggest fear, being seen as just average, or even worse, flawed. So the second they feel like you're challenging them even a little bit, they lash out. It's all about putting you down to pull themselves back up.
All right, next up we have the borderline HPC. Their catchphrase is basically love you, hate you. The core driver here is a deep, intense fear of being abandoned. Their relationships are a total roller coaster. Seriously, 1 minute you are the most amazing person in the world, their absolute savior. The next, you're a monster who's betrayed them. This lightning-fast switch from putting you on a pedestal to throwing you in the dirt, that's the classic sign. Now this next one, the antisocial HCP, this is the one you really have to watch out for. They're the cruel con artist. They can be incredibly charming, but underneath it all, there's a total lack of conscience. They see other people as just pawns in their personal game to get whatever they want. Money, power, you name it. They'll say things like, trust me, or I've changed to pull you in. But make no mistake, it's all about them.
Then there's the paranoid HCP. Their whole world is basically one big conspiracy theory starring them. They are highly suspicious of everyone. They are always on guard, and they'll take a totally innocent comment or action and twist it into some kind of hostile plot against them. This means they're always ready to launch a preemptive strike, spreading rumors, filing complaints, all to fight off enemies that most of the time don't even exist. And rounding out our 5 archetypes is the histrionic HCP. Think dramatic and accusatory. For them, all the world's a stage, and they must be the star of the show. Their core fear is being ignored, so they create drama to stay in the spotlight. A tiny disagreement? Oh, it's a tragedy. A critique? He murdered my spirit. They use this super theatrical language, always casting themselves as the poor, devastated victim in some grand opera. All right, so now we know the who's who of high-conflict personalities. But the real question is, how do you spot one in real life, preferably before you get tangled up in their web? Well, that's what this next part is all about, your personal early warning system.
For this, Eddy came up with a super handy tool called the web method. It's designed to help you focus on the facts, not the story they're spinning. So, W is for their words. Are they using extreme all-or-nothing language, like you always do this or you never listen? E is for their emotions, and just as importantly, your emotions. Are their feelings totally out of proportion to the situation? And how do you feel? Confused, on the defensive? That's a huge clue. And finally, B is for their behavior, and this is where a really simple gut check comes into play.
Yeah, this is probably the most critical tool in the whole toolbox. It's called the 90% rule. When you see someone do something that just feels off, ask yourself this one simple question. Would 90% of people ever do this? I mean, would 90% of people send 50 angry text messages in an hour? Would they scream at a barista? Publicly humiliate a coworker in a meeting? If the answer is a hard no, then chances are you're not just dealing with a bad mood. You're likely seeing a high conflict pattern. Okay, now for the part you've been waiting for, the survival guide. You've identified a potential HCP. Now what? Here's the most important thing you need to understand. Everything your gut tells you to do, reason with them, defend yourself, explain your side of the story, is wrong. It will absolutely backfire. You have to throw out your old playbook and learn a completely new, totally counterintuitive set of skills.
And that new toolkit is called the CARS method. It's a 4-step strategy. C is for connecting with empathy, attention, and respect. A is for analyzing options, helping them solve a problem. R is for responding to hostility or misinformation. And S is for setting limits. We could spend a whole day on this, but for now, we're going to zoom in on that R for respond because it contains one of the most powerful, game-changing communication tools you will ever learn.
Okay. Picture this. You open your inbox and you see an email like this one. It's just dripping with blame, full of that you always, you never language, and it's a straight-up personal attack. Now, what's your first instinct? It's to fire back, right? To defend yourself, point by point, correct all their mistakes, maybe even get a little angry. But here's the thing. That's exactly what they want. They want to fight. So instead of taking the bait, you're going to use something called a BIFF response. B-I-F-F. Stands for brief, informative, friendly, and firm. It is a formula for writing a reply that gives them absolutely no fuel for their fire. It's designed to shut the conflict down. You keep it short, you stick to the facts, you keep the tone neutral and polite, and you make it clear that the conversation is over.
And this is what that looks like in practice. Let's break it down. Is it brief? Yep, just a few sentences. Is it informative? Totally. It only gives objective facts about the deadline and the slides. Is it friendly? Well, it starts with thanks, so it's polite and neutral. And is it firm? Absolutely. It ends the discussion. Notice what it doesn't do. It doesn't apologize, it doesn't defend, it doesn't argue. It just delivers the necessary info and moves on. This literally starves the conflict of oxygen. So really, the biggest mental shift you have to make is changing your own goals for the conversation. When you're dealing with an HCP, there are 4 things you just have to, well, forget about it. Seriously. Forget about trying to give them insight into their own behavior. They will only see it as an attack. Forget about focusing on the past. They have a version of it, and it's not changing. Forget about getting caught up in their emotions. That's usually a trap. And whatever you do, forget about blaming them back. That just plays right into their hands and proves their point that they're the victim.
Look, this whole framework isn't about diagnosing anyone, and it definitely doesn't excuse harmful behavior. What it does do is give you a new lens to understand what's happening. It gives you a map to navigate these incredibly tricky situations and hopefully steer clear of the damage. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you know these patterns, who in your life will you interact with differently, starting tomorrow?